Hey guys, this is you from Coffee Fukuoka. Today we'll be talking about the coffee varieties. So when you go to any coffee store, you'll usually find for single origins that they have a variety. So usually you'll see some kind of a label written variety and then something on the side. So you don't really have to think too much about it, but I'm just going to give you a basic overview of what they mean or what they are. So I've sort of copied this type of a chart which shows the coffee tree, and I'd like to try and make it easy for you to understand what's going on basically. Okay, so hold on, let me just change the color to black. Okay, okay. So basically we have usually there's two main groups of coffee varieties. We have Arabica and we have Canephora. Otherwise, we usually call them Robusta or Robusta. And there's actually another huge group called Liberica, which is I think in West Africa, but it's not really cultivated that much anymore. That's why this thing is usually not there. So it used to be Arabica and Robusta, but the thing is that Robusta wasn't the best type of coffee. They grew very easily, like weeds, and they don't really taste that amazing, and they also smell a bit funny. So not a lot of people are a fan of Robusta, and the more treasured and the more valuable one was Arabica because it was more difficult to grow them, and you need to actually grow them in higher altitude compared to Robusta, and they need a lot of maintenance, like good sunlight, good shade, a lot of different elements. And these ones are very similar to wine in the sense that they basically need a lot of care. So they also have in the coffee farms, they have their own terroir, which is like a wine of a vineyard where you have all your grapes in different little places and they're growing and they have their own little climate. They also call it, I think, microclimate or macroclimate, where they have their own little climate that they grow in, and that's really suited for them. So Robusta was very cheap before, and it used to be used in blends, and that's why nowadays you find lots of companies trying to sell their 100% Arabica coffee, because they're trying to say that no, we are putting a lot of money, and we're investing a lot of money to make sure we get the best of the best coffee. But of course Arabica also has its the best ones and the worst ones, so it also depends on that. Now, today what we'll talk about is what you'll usually find in the single origins for Arabica. So basically what happened was that Arabica, I believe that coffee started somewhere in Ethiopia or Yemen, somewhere around there. And what happened was that it actually traveled to South America. Now, it was actually in a variety called Typica, I believe. And what happened was that after it moved to South America, something happened with the genome, the genes, the DNA, and it basically some of it turned into a variety called Bourbon or Bourbon. And from here, it sort of started to, change into these little different varieties. And that's what we have today. But we also have Bourbon, which is like the original sort of genome changed variety as well. And then Typica is the one that probably hasn't changed and has remained. And then from here, it once again, you had some changes. And if you can look closely, Typica, you can see that we have Blue Mountain. Blue Mountain is very famous coffee from Jamaica. It used to be a huge brand in Japan and it actually still is. And the Kona is the Hawaiian Kona coffee. So these all derive from the Typica variety. And then you also have Java Sumatra. What I've noticed is that the Typica one are usually more earthy and they are a lot more sort of concrete and strong in their taste. They're probably less fruity or less like fragranty, like floral. It's more like muddy, wet, mushroomy, funky. I think those kind of notes are a lot more easier to see from Typica. Now, when we go to Bourbon, Bourbon is a bit more different. This was actually more suited for single origins because all of these ones here, like Pacamara, Katuai, Katura, And then yellow bourbon, these ones are like really, really floral, fragrant, and lots of amazing, interesting flavor profiles. So these are like flowers, like they are the ones which have more of these bright qualities to it. So and nowadays a lot of people want these types of coffee. So there's a lot of like cross generation, cross like pollination, or like that lots of scientists and farmers are trying to make their own sort of different variety so that they can get like some of the best and try and make a really cool little variety. So for example, Pacamara is actually this one is a cross, a hybrid of Maragogipe and Pacas. So the Paca comes from Pacas, and the Mara comes from the Maragogipe. So these two are like a hybrid to make the Pacamara. And I think the SL28 is like a Kenyan type of variety that was basically purposely sort of made into to create this type of variety. A scientist or like a farmer, I think, tried to create this. So as you can see, coffee, just like apples or corn or any other crop, has been sort of meddled with, to try and get like the best of the best qualities and flavor profiles. And also I think resistant to like diseases and those kind of things, and also like strong and other little qualities that farmers have been like focusing on, and that's what's resulted in all of these different types of variety. So when you see the variety, don't think too much of it, but sometimes these varieties can be different in like bean size, thickness, and sometimes they have their own little characteristics, which is a bit different. So if you're interested, the best thing is to just ask the roaster, like, what's so different? Like, can you tell me? Can you teach me? That's one really good way to know, if there's like a huge difference between the varieties, and especially like in taste, because in taste it's a bit more difficult, I think. But all right, guys, I hope you learned a lot. This is just like the basic overview of how it is, and what you can expect when you find like single origin coffee. All right, I will see you in the next module.